having your Rhino put together, the first thing we need to do is load up the VP Force configurator, and you may get prompted to update the firmware. If this is the case, go ahead and do that. Next, what we want to do is go to our max motor current up here on the top right hand corner. Make sure that's set to 30, and then the max PSU current, I'm using a Meanwell power supply, so basically mine is 14.6 amps, but I have a safety margin built into there, so I don't really want this thing running at full blast as hot as possible, so I have it set down to 14 amps. Once you have that all set up, then make sure in the USB device list, this is set up as joystick, and then the USB product ID, give this a unique number. So in my case, I'm using 2051 for my cyclic, because that's really important when you go to identify it in the MFFB. Next, we want to go ahead and auto calibrate. So let's go to the click auto calibrate button. Now this message tells you what to do, but I'm going to show you exactly what to do. I'm going to click OK. Make sure this is lit up in purple, and your master gain up here should drop to 0. So now we know we are ready to calibrate. So I'm going to move this all the way back, all the way forward. I'm going to bring this to the right, to the left, my diagonals. Okay? And then I'm going to do circles with this. I'm going to get my foot out of the way here. We're going to go in complete circles. And then we're going to bring this up back to the center. And here we go. It's going to just drop forward, but that's okay. Next, we want to uncheck auto calibrate so it's no longer purple. And then we want to click store setting. So in this case, we now know that we actually have a setting that is inside and we are calibrated. Okay? So if I go all the way forward and all the way back, we can see our XY values. Everything is looking really good. It sees all the extents. Next thing we need to do is get this balance spring in check. That is so important for helicopters, especially if you're using an AFCS system where you have autopilot and following and trim systems. This is really important. I can't even stress it enough. Thanks to F14 Billy for giving me the process on this procedure. It's so important I decided to make a video on it. So the first thing you want to make sure is that none of these effects are checked. If they are, uncheck them. And then once they are, only check the balance spring and then click apply setting. Okay? So next, you want to check or uncheck this box where it says link positive and negative fields. And then you want to uncheck link X and Y fields. And the reason for this is we want to set these up all independently of each other. We don't want these actually to be linked together because it's just not going to make any sense. So basically right now, we can see that our stick is just moving, right? So we want to set up our balance spring. So let's try like 10% going forward on the y-axis, okay? We're going to apply setting. The goal is to set this up so that basically wherever you want to leave it in a position and it doesn't move. So in this case, we could see it's still dipping forward, right? So let's go ahead and bump this up to maybe 15%. Let's click apply, because I know this is a little front heavy. This is really important because of the people with offsets on their sticks, and this is actually a metal grip. Okay, so it's still going, but not much. Let's try maybe 20%. Okay. Okay, we see it's still dipping, but not much, but it is doing it. Let me show you what an incorrect value is. So if we set this at 100, right? Be careful, you gotta steer clear of this. Apply. See what happens? This is what we don't want. We want it to stay where we leave it. We don't want it to come back to the center at this point. So let's try, I don't know, 25%. Apply. Okay, see how it's coming back? That's what we don't want. So we know that 25% is a little too high. Let's go down to 20, click apply. Okay, this is really good. So let's go ahead and work on the back. Let's maybe try 10% on this as well. It's a little too much. Maybe let's try 5%. And again, every time you do a change, you have to click apply setting. This applies the setting softly to the controller, meaning that it doesn't write it to the controller permanently. That's the store setting button is for. Okay, see that? Now it's holding. This is what we want. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it just like that. So 20% forward, 5% backward on my setup. Everybody else's is going to be different. So let's go ahead and start looking to the right and the left. So the right, you can see she starts dipping a little bit. So maybe 10% on the right. Okay, that looks really good. So I know this is a little top heavy. When it goes toward the left, it's going to want to pull more. So I think here maybe I'll try maybe 15%. Let's see. Actually might be a little too much. Drop it down to 12%. Click apply. And you should hear the beep from the motor controller. Okay, so it's still dipping. Actually, no, that's right. So it is dipping to the forward actually just a little bit, maybe 21% on this forward. Maybe 22%. So I know 25 was too high before. And this is also because I don't have any constant power going in here. So for example, like static force I have set 1%. If I click apply, I think that's actually going to hold it. See that? So we know that this is actually going to work out. And actually I can see this pulling back with that slight static force. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this to 20% because I know that static force is going to be on. Okay, I'm going to go down to 18. So it's a bit of trial and error. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, so the goal is to just get this really as close as possible. Now I'm going to go ahead and start turning on my other effects. My spring, my adaptive, recentering, my damper, my inertia, and my friction. And I have my static force as you saw before. I'm going to click apply, and I'm just going to see how this feels. So we have some nice, good amount of resistance. It's coming back to the center. This is what we want with adaptive recentering and spring when we're using the AFCS system, because what's going to happen is MSFS is actually going to take control of this because it's all baked into the programming. So next, after you're satisfied with all this stuff, let's take a look at the settings page and my master gains and where I have everything set. You could go ahead and change all these values. This is really going to be personal preference, so definitely check out the menu to see which each one of these do. And then when you're all set, click store settings. And it says configuration set. So this means now when I close the VP Force configurator, we can see my stick is still set up. So when you boot this thing down and boot it back up, it's going to do its calibration procedure. You're going to see it move a couple of times, and it should go with no problem. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and unplug it and show you what that looks like.